Tronc is building a shadow newsroom full of scabs, LA Times staffers fear. Upbin was a mystery to much of the newspaper's staff, which had just voted to unionize the week before. He was one of several similarly unannounced middle manager types who had come aboard in recent weeks. Although he and the others were listed in the Times Human Resources software as having editorial titles, they were reporting to Rob Angel, the Times Chief Business Development Officer. These new LA managers had also been working on the second floor, despite the newsroom being on the third. And, of course, there was the bizarre fact that they had yet to be introduced to any of the actual newsroom staff of about 400. 1 LA Times employee, who spoke to HuffPost on the condition of anonymity, overheard Upbin say they were creating a national newsroom outside of the union, to service all of Tronc's markets. Tronc, formerly Tribune Publishing, is the owner of the LA Times, along with other newspapers in 10 markets across the country. Upbin also mentioned that he had a total of 5 people to hire. This was the closest thing Times employees have gotten in weeks to a real answer about what the company is up to, and it was a confirmation of some of their worst fears. The new management team is apparently being framed as part of a reorganization, according to Harvard's Nieman Lab. Since being hired in October, LA Times editor-in-chief Louis Dvorkin has quietly brought on a number of editors from around the country. In addition to Upbin, who had worked with Dvorkin at Forbes, he hired former Fox Sports executive Steve Miller as an assistant managing editor for digital, Louise Story, a renowned former New York Times reporter, as managing editor, The Washington Post's Sylvester Monroe as an assistant managing editor, and Will Tacey of Good Media as an editor. With the exception of Miller, none of these new managers has been announced to the public or even to the staff itself. And the only reason anyone knows any of this is thanks to the company's internal HR software, which has proved to be one of the only windows into management's thinking. HuffPost spoke with 12 current and former Times employees, all of whom asked to remain anonymous for fear of retribution. They described an atmosphere of intense secrecy, distrust and anxiety as they try to get to the bottom of a story they're living instead of reporting. What exactly does Tronc have in store for them? The newsroom has basically become a large-scale intelligence operation to figure out what the fuck our managers are up to, one current employee explained. And though the newsroom did discover bits and pieces, Upbin helped tie the whole thing together. Staffers fear that Tronc is building a shadow national newsroom non-union, of course that would duplicate not only parts of the LA Times union staff but that of other Tronc properties as well, making the union employees expendable. And, although Tronc and LA Times senior management, which includes Dvorkin, Times president Mickey Rosen and CEO and publisher Ross Levinson, who is currently on a leave of absence following allegations of sexual harassment, have refused to offer any clarity about what this might mean, much less acknowledge the existence of a new national operation. You can only stonewall a roomful of reporters for so long before they start digging on their own. Dworkin and the newly hired managers have not responded to HuffPost's requests for comment. A shadow scab outfit. Part of what makes these new hires' roles so difficult to pin down for staffers, though, is a curious little trait shared by all of Tronc's new managerial hires, and at least a few non-managerial ones. They've all actually been hired under a different company than the one employing every other editorial employee on staff. Though Union LA. Times staffers are all employed under Los Angeles Times Communications LLC, according to the same internal HR system that revealed the existence of these hires in the first place. These mysterious new employees have been hired under a Tronc company that was renamed Los Angeles Times Network LLC in November, as reported earlier Friday by Neiman Labs' Kin Doctor. If you look on the California Secretary of State's website, you'll find the name change filing below. The new LA. Times entity first came to the attention of Newsroom employees when they saw an LA network referenced in a Tronc job listing. Employees realized this was likely the network mysteriously referenced in a slide from a presentation Levinson gave on January 18, the same day sexual harassment allegations against him came out. This presentation was ostensibly about an upcoming network of unpaid contributors, along the lines of the one Dworkin implemented at Forbes. According to both a former employee and a current staffer, Levinson wasn't explaining the full picture. In addition to this free contributor network, Tronc is apparently planning to create a series of specialized teams, called verticals, that will exist entirely within this new LA. Times Network, which is being referred to internally as NewCo and which exists as part of the business side, not editorial, as one would expect from a news operation. Each of the new managers is supposedly presiding over a different vertical, multiple employees told HuffPost. For instance, Monroe will head up a vertical covering race issues, Upbin will be overseeing the tech vertical, and Story, who is in New York, will take on an investigative vertical. The work created under these verticals, both from professional and non-professional contributors, will then be distributed across not only the LA Times but also Tronc newspapers nationally. Complicating this is the fact that many of these non-union verticals already exist under the actual LA Times editorial operation, which strives to maintain a strict separation from any business interests. The paper has a history of trampling the line between business and editorial. Some employees worry this is a precursor to layoffs for the union staffers, whom Tronc seems to be actively making redundant. Another possibility is that Tronc will focus on building up a non-union workforce under NewCo and kill the union through attrition. On January 19, the Newsroom voted overwhelmingly to unionize, 248 to 44, with the NewsGuild. Given the turmoil in recent days, the union sent a note to members informing them of their so-called Weingarten right to be accompanied by a union representative in any meeting with management in which discipline seems possible. After workers vote to unionize, a company generally has to keep the status quo in place as the parties bargain toward a contract, meaning that, legally speaking, it would be tough for the company to fire a bunch of newsroom staffers and give their work to new non-union workers. The NewsGuild declined to comment, but the standard union move here would be to demand information from the company on any new hires and where they fit in with the current organization. As one staffer put it, "Our strategy right now as a union is to find out everything we can and to raise our voices without fear of individual repercussions. Whatever its intentions, management is taking no steps to assuage staffers' concerns." At a recent meeting that Tronc held with a group of reporters and editors, one employee asked what Levinson's January 18 presentation meant for Times staffers. Tronc didn't have an answer, according to a current employee and a former employee. "I didn't see Ross's presentation was all he would allow.